Welcome to Schools Not Out, your daily classroom for CSEC and CAPE students. But today we'll be looking at spreadsheets. And what you will have to already know about spreadsheets for this particular lesson, you have to understand what cell referencing is about, what are absolute cell referencing, what's a relative cell reference, and of course possibly naming cell ranges. Those things will be key for the remainder of this lesson. All right. Today we'll be also looking at VLOOKUP, and we'll be looking at filtering, pivot tables, and just a little bit of charting. Of course, today, if you were watching the entire program, you would have seen from the sociology class that representing information in the forms of tables and charts are very important. And this particular IT lesson can help you where that is concerned. All right. So VLOOKUP, first and foremost, all VLOOKUP is a way for you to look in one particular table and return information regarding that table. All right. And as we will explore today, you will see where we want to identify three different things that are a must when you're working on your VLOOKUP. All right. The first one is your lookup value. That's the value per se that you're looking for in the current table. And then we have a table array, which is the particular table that has the content that you want to extract or you want to find, and then the particular column that you want to bring information from in that particular lookup table. The syntax for your VLOOKUP looks like this, and I've always told my students it is important that you understand or even know this formula or function by heart. All right. This formula or function is what is going to guide you. Even if you don't know what exactly should go in these different sections, you must know the lookup value, you must know the table that you're working with, and you must know the column that you want the information to be returning from. All right. So the context of it looks like equal sign, and of course you always start a function or formula with your equal sign. Then you have lookup or VLOOKUP. Now you can use any form of lookup that you want, but the most common ones are your VLOOKUP. You have lookup, one called lookup, you have one called HLOOKUP, but the most common one is VLOOKUP. So after you have your equal sign, you have this VLOOKUP stating that this is the function I intend to use. Then the lookup value, which can be either a number, but most often than not, it is a cell reference. All right. And then the table array, which is another cell reference, but it's referencing a range of cells. And the column index has to do what particular column you want information to be extracted from your table array. We're going to look at an example really quickly, and I hope that you'll be able to follow the example as best as you possibly can, and let's see how we can get it to work. Now, I have here a table containing just a list of names and some persons and having some test scores. And we can see from our third column right at the bottom here where the person has a set of test scores. And I've just placed them in here really quickly. So we have Harry Styles getting 32 out of 100, of course. We have Keanu Reeves getting 45, Billy O'Connell getting 45, Tamela Mann 79, Kirk Franklin 90. And now we want to test the cell ranges or to test what they could possibly get, what's a grade or for those scores. And I have three tables here, and each of them serve their own purpose, and we'll see why. First and foremost, we have the first table here, and it is sorted by score in a descending order from 100 to 0. And if we look at the ranges, we have 100 being an A, 90 being B, 70 being C, 60 being D, 50 being E, 0 being F. There are a couple of problems with this particular table, and we're going to see why in just a moment. We've used this table to do our first VLOOKUP. And the VLOOKUP function looks like, if you look at the top of your screen where you have your formula bar, f of x, your VLOOKUP function says equal VLOOKUP C13, comma, A3 colon B8, that's the table array, comma, 2, which means the second column. All right. And this particular function therefore is saying look up for a value in C13, and that value in C13 would be Harry Styles' test score right here. And then I'm going to look up for that value inside of the table, the first test score table here, which is A3 to B8, and then return the grade which is in column 2. But in this particular example, we see where the return is NA. And the problem with that is that whenever we are working with VLOOKUP, our table must be sorted in ascending order and not descending order. And so if I try to sort it here, there might be a change in the values we are noticing right through, because we're having an NA for 3 of our values. The 32, 45, and the 245s we're having an NA for. That means not applicable. So this thing has to be sorted in order for us to actually see a correct representation of the information that we're trying to extract. So if we sort by score, here we see 1 has changed. And the one that has changed is the one that says 32, the very first one that is an F. But there is a second problem with this particular formula. In the first cell, we see where we are actually referencing the table exactly. So A3 to B8, we are referencing it exactly. But when we copy the formula down, we notice that the cell reference changed from A4 to B5. And if I just expand it and show you the actual formula, you will see here where, because I've copied the entire cell range, the cell ranges relating to the table are continuing to change. And if you notice also, there's a green highlight around the now changed table. If I move down to the other formula, you will see where that green highlight has changed as well. So what is happening is here is because I've copied this information and I've used a relative cell reference. The cell references are changing as I am copying the formula or the function. And I don't want that to ever happen. And so what do? Well, what we do in a situation like this is add dollar signs around the cell reference, meaning adding a dollar sign before the letter relating to the column and a dollar sign before the number relating to the rows inside of our function. And then when we copy the function, we will see that this particular function will be much more accurate in that it remains or keeps the cell range reference all the way through. And that's what we're talking about, an absolute cell reference, or in this case, an absolute range reference. Also note that C13 has changed to C14, C15, etc., which that is the kind of change that we want because we are moving down the column. And if we turn back to our actual data view, we will notice that our values have also changed. All right? Our values have also changed here. There's one other little thing that we might look at. Notice also in test range 1, we don't have a 80 anywhere there. And there's a big jump, it seems, between 70 and 90. You must also ensure that when you're working with your own cell ranges, you have the necessary or the correct kind of representation in your data so that you can get the correct kind of lookup value coming out from you. If you notice, we have a number of other tests, but we're going to just jump to test range number 3 in order for us to, keep within the time. In the test range number 3, we see a difference in terms of what we're using as our cell range. In this case, we are using an actual name called grade scheme. And what has happened is that we have named the test range 3 as grade scheme, and only the values or only the table. We did not include any of the headings. We did not include score. We did not include grade. All we did was to highlight the values themselves. And in highlighting the values, we created this name called grade scheme. How we create that name, and I'm just going to create one here for you to show you how that is done. We highlight the set of cells that we want to give a name, and then we go to the name box, which is immediately to the left of your formula bar at the top of your screen, and we give it a name. And I'm just going to type in arbitrary name. And wherever I see that name or see that word arbitrary name, then it will always reference the particular cells that I have selected or highlighted. All right? And that is how you normally do your VLOOKUP. You want to pay attention to the cell range, the lookup value, and the particular column that you're working with at all times. All right? Now we're going to move on to filtering. And the filter practice that I want to pay attention to today, and remember, this is relating to your SBA, so I want to give you as much as possible here relating to your SBA so you can complete the SBA. Now there are normally two types of filtering. There's an auto filter and there's an advanced filter. Your auto filter filters a list right in place, and you can choose the criteria, and that is normally reversible. However, you want to do an advanced filter mostly in your SBA because you're going to be marked for the criteria range as well as the extracted information. If you do an auto filter, it will just filter in the list and change the list. But that's not what you want. You want to show the examiners, you want to show them that you are able to create an advanced filter by creating a criteria and creating the extracted information. Now, if we jump to the in-place filter, let me just show you quickly on Microsoft Excel. And of course, you don't have to necessarily use Microsoft Excel at all times. Some of you might, well, this is going to cost you some money to buy Excel, but there are others that you can use. You can use Open Office. There's an Open Office, I think it's online, that is free. LibreOffice is free. You can use Google Sheets as well, and those things are free and have more or less the same capabilities as Microsoft Excel. All right, so this list now is the very new list. It's just a simple pet store list, and this pet store list contains a number of pets ranging from dogs, cats, whatever, piglets, fish. And if I wanted now to do a filter on this particular list, I'd highlight it. And the range at this point isn't really that important for an in-place filter. You just want to ensure that you've highlighted the entire list, including the headings. And then we will move to our filter icon at the top of your screen. And it looks like, for those of you who do chemistry and physics or chemistry and biology, it looks like a funnel filter, all right? And you just click on it, and what happens is that it adds arrows to your list. And those arrows now, you can go ahead and select whatever criteria you want to choose from your arrows. So I'm in the arrow called type, and I'm going to, when that comes up and I click on it, you see the term select all. I'm going to click on select all to remove the arrows, and then I'm just going to select one arrow called bird and click OK. And what that does is filter out all the other pets and leave only the birds inside my list. Now, if you notice, as I said before, this list is an in-place filter. So right away, what I had before no longer exists, but I can of course change that and undo the filter if I wanted to. And that is how easy an in-place filter is. But as I've said before, this is not the one that you want to focus on for your SBA. The one that you want to pay attention to is an advanced filter. And here in this advanced filter, the same list, but I have different criteria. I have one on the far left where I'm searching for the breed. I want the Yorkshire breed, whatever that means. Then I have one criteria list called type dog, and then another one with two different types, dog and cat. And then we have one for cost, one for DOB, and then we have another set that goes for, that has two different criteria but are in two different rows or in the same row. Now each of them have their purpose. And when you create your criteria, you want to ensure that you have the name of the heading, which in this case can be breed, type, DOB or cost or name. And you also want to have the necessary criteria or criterion. All right, I'm just going to show you one of them for the sake of time. Here we have one here where we have the type of pet to be a dog, and the cost is greater than 35,000. So this is our criteria, and this is what we call an AND criteria. Why? Because we have both of them in the same row, meaning both criteria must be satisfied when we are looking in our list. So I'm now going to highlight I'm now going to do the advanced filter to show you exactly how it works. So I click on advanced filter, and immediately a box pops up and tells me, what are you trying to filter? Do you want to filter the list in place, or do you want to copy to another location? Again, for this particular kind of filter, you do not want to filter in place. This particular kind of filter is going to erase your original list. So what we want to do is to select copy to another location. And after we've selected that, another particular dialog or a part of your dialog will come alive saying that, okay, copy to is now alive. We can work with that particular text or text box. So let me just show you again. So filter in place, copy to grays out. But when you click copy to another location, copy to comes alive to show you that, hey, we can use that particular cell. Now, if your cell or your range isn't already selected, what you want to do is to click in the first text box that says list range, delete it, make sure you delete everything, and then you highlight the list range that you intend to use. And the list range is the original table. The original table. And notice that this comes up with an absolute cell reference. Now I'm going to try to select the criteria range. So I'm going to delete whatever is inside criteria range if there was anything there. And then I'm going to highlight this criteria range. And then, of course, specify, well, that would more or less specify that this criteria range is what I intend to use. So I'm using the one that says type, dog, cost greater than 35,000. All right. And then in the copy to location section, I want to choose somewhere that is a little bit away off from where my criteria range is. And it's normally, or it's customary for you to just to put it below everything else. So you select a cell that is below all the other cells or all the other occupied cells in your spreadsheet, and then you click OK. And let me just scroll down so you can see what occurred. What has occurred is that now I have an extracted list where I found a dog who has a cost of $50,000 based on the criteria. Because what I was looking for, I want a type of animal of the type dog who had a cost of greater than $35,000. And that is what that extracted list has done. All right. Now, you might say this is a little bit tedious. And what I've done on the second sheet here is to give each of these cell ranges a name. So this cell that I've now highlighted is called filter underscore list. The criteria ranges have also been given a name. Some of them have been given a name, and I'm just going to show you what they are quickly. This one is dog, cat. I wanted to search for dogs or cats. And then I had some others listed here. All right, criteria. And one called, where is this other one called? Similar one. Called dog cost. All right. And each of these criteria can be given names themselves so that we can do the filter a little bit faster. And here's what I mean by doing the filter a little bit faster. When we were at the first list here, we had to highlight everything as we went along. With this particular one, after creating the criteria and the lists, we can simply type in our names, filter underscore list, and make sure that it's typed correctly according to what we have already named the list, the criteria to be. And then we can have dog, cat. Oh, that's a capital C. Dog, cat. So now you see where in the list range I have the exact names relating to the ranges that I'm working with. The filter list is the list range. I could have highlighted it, but because I gave it a name, I just typed it right in. For the other one, criteria, dog, cat, I know what the range already is and I could have highlighted it. But again, I just typed it in. And then where it relates to copy to, of course, you possibly want to put a name there if you wanted to, but I like to click around where that particular selection is concerned and press enter. And what happens here now is that the list is now filtered in and I can find, and I found all the dogs and all the cats from that particular list. And this is a spreadsheet. Remember, this is one of the, what you'd call a database feature in spreadsheets. I remember one time I was marking on CSEC paper and they asked a question very similar to this. Like, name one database feature that you can find in a spreadsheet. This was it. All right, this was the answer. So if that comes on the multiple choice, you know one of them already. All right. Finally, we want to quickly look at what we call a pivot table. Now, what a pivot table does is allow you to extract information as well, but gives you a summary of the information. I have a table here containing information relating to some people who work in telemarketing. And what I've done is to try to filter information relating to them. So on the sheets to the right, I have filtered this table to find the managers and their quota, and then the sales rep and their quota, and then their telemarketer and their quota. And also, I've made another table that shows or extracts information based on the gender of these person, the telemarketer. I'm going to show you real quickly how that is done so you can get a feel of it. So what I'll do is to click on insert in my menu bar or my ribbon and click on pivot table. And that's the very first icon to the left when you enter the insert menu. All right. And now we have a dialog box that comes up and it says, what is your table range? What do you want me to select? And I say, okay, I want to select these or all of this. All right. And then the question comes up, do you want a new worksheet or existing worksheet? It's always a good idea to use a new worksheet for something like that. And so we're going to click on new worksheet, and when that comes up, our filter, well, I'm not seeing it here. Where is it? Good. Our filter comes up and asking you, what exactly do you want to see on your filter? And I said, I want to see the gender. I want to see quota 2002. All right. And you notice it's just taking out and grouping them by my selections and by the gender that I selected just before. And so that is how you do a simple pivot table. One of the biggest problem I think where charts are concerned is that sometimes students don't know what charts to use when. And most often than not, we, when marking, have to make some kind of leeway or find some kind of way to understand what you're trying to represent when you represent it. But mind you, try to find the proper chart for what you want to represent. All right, so a while ago we were looking at a sales representative database, and this database contained information about telemarketers, and they had a couple of quotas. So just let's explain what's going on here. We have their names, ages, etc., and we have a title for each and every one of them. But we also have a quota that they should have filled for a particular year, and then that quota is matched against what they actually did, which is the sales amount. So we have 2 years here being represented, and each year shows a quota and a sales amount. What we can do as it relates to charting for this, we can look at what each person did for a year, or we can look at what they've done for both years. The two that I've selected here, we've looked at year 2002, where we look at their quota and sales. And this is what the chart actually looks like. All right. Now, why I've chosen this chart is because we can actively compare the sales and quota for each particular individual, and we can see who surpassed their quota by how much, really. All right. So this kind of a chart makes sense for this kind of representation, and this is what you call a column chart. All right. Now let me just show you how it is done quickly, because we're looking at several non-joint set of ranges. We're looking at their names, which include first name and last name, and we're looking at the quota for 2002 and the sales for 2002. So we only want those 4 ranges. All right. As you can see from our chart, those are the only things that are being represented. The name of the person, or the names of the person, as well as quota and sales. So we only want those ranges. So let's go ahead now. So what I'm going to do initially now is to highlight first name and last name inclusive of the range headings. So I want the first name there, or I want F name there, and I want L name there. But now I have the challenge of highlighting the quota and the sales for 2002, and those cells are found in column G and H. So what I'm going to do is to hold down the control bar, or the control key, sorry, and then I'm going to click my left mouse button. For those of you who are using a laptop, click your left mouse button with your index finger, your right index finger, and use your middle finger to drag over the remaining set of cells. All right. If you don't get it right the first time, you can try again. And you highlight those set of cells. And the way that you know that it's highlighted, or it's highlighted properly, is when you see those cells that you've chosen in blue or in some kind of highlighted color. When you've done that now, you can click on your insert ribbon and click column, and you choose an appropriate column chart. Now what I mean by appropriate, remember this particular chart is supposed to compare the sales with the quota. So you can't just choose a stack column. You want to choose a particular chart that will show both values side by side. And so I'm going to choose a 3D column. But yes, we're having a problem with this. What? Because everything is moving to one side. Let me just right click on that and change the rotation or change the, oh, it can't switch. Okay, let me just re-highlight that and make sure that I get the correct highlighting going. Okay. All right, good. All right, so let me highlight that again and choose a proper column that will represent what I want properly. Yeah, I look like I left out something. All right, let me do it again. I need some more practice with the laptop. All right. Yeah. All right. So I have my highlighting now, and let me choose a more appropriate column chart, see what it represents. Choose a simple one. See the stack there, that won't work because it's giving me a completely different kind of look. So that won't work either. So what do I do? Well, I can always come here to the top and click change chart type and choose a different chart type. Maybe that will work. That look better because I'm seeing now the different values. All right. But then there's another problem. I'm not seeing the names. Normally because it's too small. So I normally like to right click on it and move my chart and select new sheet and just quickly give it a name. All right. And now that looks a little bit better. I'm seeing everything a little bit clearer now. And it's normally always a good idea, I should say, always a good idea to do a new sheet. And then I'm going to right click on my chart columns themselves. And when I right click on them, I can always add the data label or add data labels to them. And that will show me what the values are for these particular charts or as I go along. So I can add data labels for just one or for all if I wanted to. All right. The other thing that I see students tend to do is to leave off their axis titles. Again, you are marked for things like that, so you want to pay attention to adding those things to your axis. So we click on layout and you will see axis titles. And we have a primary horizontal here that we want to add it below. And immediately at the bottom of your screen, you see axis title that you can double click on and change the name. You can do that very same thing as well for the vertical. All right. And then all you have to do is to double click on these and you'll be able to change them. So if I double click on this, all right. Slow double click. I still have a problem. Right, good. I can always select, can call it values / money for want of a better word. All right, and you can go ahead and change those as you need. All right, the final chart that we'll be looking at quickly is the pie chart. All right, and now we see we are here. I'm just looking at one set of values, which is the quota for each of these persons for 2002. And as you can see, I can see who has the larger piece for that year or who needs to bring in the larger piece. We can add labels to this chart, and of course it will allow us to see percentages, see the actual values, and see who these persons are. So again, what I encourage you to do is to practice and just try some of these chartings as you go along and see which one works for you. So let's do a quick recap. What did we do? Well, we looked at filtering, We looked at VLOOKUP, we looked at both advanced and we looked at auto filtering. We looked at charting and the different types of charts. All right, and those are the things that we want you to practice.